A very successful entrepreneur once said to me that the biggest mistake when starting her business was that she did not do enough about marketing, in the early years especially. And she's not the only one. I know a lot of startup entrepreneurs that think that marketing is something they do when they have a bigger budget. But what a lot of entrepreneurs, especially startup entrepreneurs, are often not aware of is that there's so much they can do to market their business and grow their profits significantly, even without a big budget, or even without any budget. Today, I invited a very special guest who is an expert in how to boost your business to success, using marketing and selling techniques that can be applied by any organization, no matter what their size of budget. Welcome back to another episode of the Business Launch Portal Show. Every week, I bring you a very successful entrepreneur to inspire you with their story of how to build and grow their business. And every week you get priceless and very practical hints on how also you can rocket your ideas into enterprise. And if you want to get your own business started, and if you like me and highly successful entrepreneurs take you by the hand and guide you step by step through the startup process, then look at the power programs on www.businesslaunchportal.com. Well, our very special guest today is Terri Levine, who is known as the business mentoring expert. Terri, you work with small and medium-sized businesses to help them grow their profits substantially. Over the last 10 years, you worked with more than 5,000 business people from more than 200 industries. And Terri, you really know what you're talking about. You founded your first business at the age of 22, and you have become a serial entrepreneur, really. You sold even several of your businesses one after you grew it to quite an impressive size of more than 2,000 people working in it with a value of more than $10 million. And you're also the founder and CEO of the Coaching Institute, which is one of the top coach training programs in the United States. And you have published more than 10 books on selling, coaching, and guerrilla marketing. And you even co-authored a book with J. Conrad Levinson, the man behind guerrilla marketing. Honestly, Terri, I think this is a pretty impressive background. And we are very happy to have you on the show today with us, that you can share your own story and some hints on what people can do with a small or even no budget to market and sell their own services and business, right? Well, first of all, Terri, a very warm welcome today to our show of this very long introduction.
Thank you so much, Monique. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, Terri, why don't you tell us a little more about your background and how you got into business?
I'm happy to do that. I'm going to start and give you the quick version, but I'm going to start when I was a child. So I grew up pretty poor. My mother was a stay-at-home mom because that's what people did back then. And my father was in sales. So there were not entrepreneurial kinds of people. And I realized that if I wanted money to do things, that I could sell things. One of the things that I did is I sold Girl Scout cookies door to door, and I ended up being the top person in the entire state of New York, which is very large. So that was a really big deal, and my father and mother were shocked that I wasn't nervous about going door to door, and I loved it. I met new people, and they were nice to me, and even if they said no, I didn't take it personally. Maybe they didn't like cookies, or it didn't matter. Then I went to college to become a speech-language pathologist, and the one thing that they did not teach us in college is anything to do with business and marketing. So I got out of college, I started my own speech clinic, and I was sitting in a big rented office, and there was nobody coming. And I said, have to do something. And I literally started going to doctors' offices, and I would sit there sometimes for 4 hours. And finally, one doctor came out and said, and I'm quoting him, "Girl, I don't know what you have to sell, but nobody is this persistent. Come on into my office." And he started to refer clients, and that's how that business got launched. So I'll fast forward. I sold that business about a year later. This was back a long time ago. I sold it for $1 million, and $1 million was a lot of money back then. And then I started an art business where I brought original oil paintings into people's homes. And that's the business you mentioned in my bio, had about 2,200 employees, built that to about 12 million, sold that. We've had many other companies along the way, but the one I love the most is what I'm doing now, which is my own coaching and consulting business. But here's the big thing I want to say, Monique. I didn't know a thing about sales and marketing. I knew nothing. And I really created a formula, and it works, and now I teach it to other people. So that's my story.
Okay, and before I'm gonna come back and ask you what that magic formula is, because you want to know all about it, of course, before I'm gonna ask you another question, Terri, which is for people that get started in their business, because this is a business launch show, so it's often for people that are just getting started. What are the most important ingredients and success secrets that you would give people on the way that just get started now?
Great question. The first thing I say is research. Just because you came up with something that you think is a great idea, it doesn't mean that there's a need or a want. So you're going to want to survey, but you can't survey until you know what I call your hungry fish. Who are the people that have the need or want? What ages are they? What hobbies do they have? What do they look like? Where do they work? Maybe they don't work. Where do they hang out? So you've got to find out your hungry fish are really your ideal clients who are already swimming in a pond going, I want this, I want this. So you have to identify that first, research with them that there is a need and a want. And the third thing is you have to be able to put yourself where those hungry fish are. Does that make sense?
Oh, very much so. But a question that I often get from startup entrepreneurs is that they say, how can I do this kind of research early in the process when I'm not known, I don't have a big list, I don't really know who to address it to. How can people do that?
Nowadays it's pretty easy because of the internet, okay? In particular, LinkedIn. So start to join some LinkedIn groups where your hungry fish might be. And ask the question. Say, I'm thinking of starting a business that would have X, Y, Z. Would that be something people are interested in? Go on Facebook and start Facebook conversations like that. Start looking on forums and chat rooms and seeing what people are chatting about. I'll just share this. One of my clients has these drops that apparently help people lose weight. And she didn't know if they could sell or not. And I said, there are so many places where people are hanging out discussing weight loss. Start asking if people would buy drops for $89. And when she got a big yes, then we did a brand launch and marketed her product. Does that make sense?
Oh, I love it, yes. And internet makes things so much easier today.
Oh, yes.
But let's talk about your magic formula that you just mentioned earlier. Of course, we are very curious to hear all about it.
Okay. So I already kind of told you the first part, which is know your hungry fish. And I have to tell you, about a month ago, I did a seminar. I don't know, there were 200, 300 people in the room. And I asked this question to the audience. I said, can anyone give me 10 characteristics of their hungry fish right off the bat of your head, just like that? And if you can, I will give you $1,000, okay? Not one person. Not one person raised their hand. And by the way, I make that bet a lot, and I've never lost the money, okay? Because the average person, even in business today, they don't know. So please make sure that you do your research, you know your hungry fish, and once you know them, the second part is know what ponds they're fishing in. So what I mean by that is there are a lot of hungry fish in many different ponds, right? Where do your fish swim? Are they soccer moms that are on the soccer field? Are they people who work in a certain type of business, like chiropractors? Are they people in job transition? Are they women? Are they men? Identify where they hang out. And it could even be magazines they read, newspapers they read, what they like to eat, what kind of books they like to read. So know where your hungry fish are. And then the third thing that's part of my formula is have the right bait. And that means you've got to have something that entices them or hooks them to you. So, a lot of people are afraid of gimmicks out there. They're afraid they're going to lose their money or get taken. You have to have bait that has an irresistible offer that they want, and I recommend a guarantee. That's the formula.
I love that, Terri. And let me ask you, do you like fishing?
How funny. I don't like fishing, but this is really funny you ask.
In business you do.
Yeah, I was looking for an analogy one day, and I'm like, this is it. And by the way, yes, in business I do. I started an event on Friday after being introduced by saying, we're all here for the fishing conference, right? And people were just like, no. I'm like, well, we're going to talk about fishing, and people were really getting worried about who I was. I thought you were a marketing expert.
I love that one. Well, let's go back to your business, the last business you started, and you say that this is the one you're most passionate about is, and it's a passion that both of us share. We love to help people get their business started and also bring it to the next level eventually, right?
Right.
And how did you do research for your own business? What besides research and the things, that you just mentioned in terms of what were your fishes, where are they hanging out, and what baits did you create, and why did you become so hugely successful once more with that kind of business?
Okay, so let me first go to when I started my business. So kind of back up with me 17 years ago, I want to be a coach. And at the time, I thought I wanted to be a career coach. And the reason was hungry fish were coming to me. I had just quit being president of a national healthcare company, and other regional presidents, vice presidents, director of operations, they were all calling me the first week that I quit saying, I want to do what you did. So I'm like, hungry fish, they're interested. So I started my business really easily because I knew my hungry fish. I had 30 clients in 30 days, but here's a secret I want people to get. I kept fishing. I kept a waiting list. I wrote articles for career magazines, People in Transition. Since I had just come out of healthcare, I wrote articles about burnout in healthcare. And then in the article, I would say, get a free report. And when they get a free report, they literally would call me for the free report. So I developed this big waiting list. So that's how I started. But let me kind of go forward. Monique, I started to be approached by a lot of coaches, primarily, saying, my business isn't working. I don't know what to do. Will you help me? And at first I'm like, no, I'm a career coach, people in transition. But then you have to listen. When your fish keep showing up, you may as well serve them. So for about 5 years, also owning the coach training school, I became known as the coach's coach, and I was coaching coaches. And then people started asking me, well, what about my business? And what about my business? And so I expanded, and I really felt my passion is service-oriented businesses. And it's very easy for me to fish there. I simply offer to speak to conferences and conventions, and I write a lot of articles, put a lot of videos on YouTube, and a lot of content out there. So I use the internet mostly now.
I love that. And we're adding another video to your collection and my collection as well. Yes. And in that one, we actually demystify something that people thought that fish don't talk, but now we know they do, right?
They sure do.
So let's talk about something else that a lot of people hear a lot about and still turning their learning and their concepts into practical steps is very difficult. I'm talking about online marketing. What are you telling our audience that they could really very specifically do to market their business even without a small budget or without a big budget, but maybe with a small budget or no budget at all? Can you share some online marketing tactics with us?
Yes. First of all, the only kind of a website you need is a blog. That is really what Google picks up, and Google is still the biggest of all the search engines by far. No one is even close to it if you add up all the other ones, so I only pay attention to Google. You need to have a blog, and they're free. I recommend WordPress, and the reason I recommend WordPress is Google owns it, so Google searches that and more. On your blog, and you can put content at least twice a week. More is better, but twice a week. Please don't put anything salesy. Put some tips, some articles, some techniques, a top 10 list, something that your fish would be really interested in reading. And then set up an account on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the most important of social media for business owners. So this is free. Get onto LinkedIn. Start looking for groups that are relevant on LinkedIn, that are the hungry fish. And start posting comments and conversations. And after you give, this is my formula for LinkedIn, after you give 10 pieces of really good content, then go ahead and put a link to your blog and say, you might be interested in reading my latest blog post. Then 10 more content, and then another to go over to the blog. Facebook is fine. Twitter is fine. The truth of the matter is I've worked with 5,000 clients, and I haven't yet seen somebody monetize it. And I've personally monetized LinkedIn, and so have my clients. So I'm all about LinkedIn. By the way, you can get websites, and most people don't know this. Google, if you go to Google and just search Google websites, Google has a tool now where you can create a website on Google. Therefore, it gets searched very quickly, and it's free. And so you don't have to pay hosting or anything. And what I found actually about Google sites that is very, very cool is I don't know how to create a website, and maybe some other people don't. I literally clicked on about 8 buttons, and yeah, this is a good background, I want this and this and this. Boom, it's created. So that's how I would really begin.
Oh, I hadn't known about the Google website part yet. Where would we find it? Do we just search Google websites?
I would search it. I have a link for it. So if people want it, they can drop me an email because I can't think of it right now, and I will definitely share.
That would be great. Well, so much about online marketing techniques. What about offline? A lot of people think offline marketing is dead. You and I know it's not. It's the new hype, right? So what can people do offline?
Excellent question. Well, there are 2 things that I highly recommend. The first is getting a book written. And I have a client, by the way, who does books that are about 20 pages. So you basically write a couple of articles, she puts them in a book. Get the book printed for a few bucks, all of a sudden you can say, I'm the author of. Let me just, it's sitting on my desk. This is one of my books, Guerilla Marketing, okay? It's not a big deal. It has really big print. This Guerilla Marketing for beauty salons is niche. Notice the words, Guerilla Marketing for Who's My Fish? Beauty salons. I have another one, Guerilla Marketing for spas. Say in the title who you want to read the book. You don't need a big book. Get it printed. It's a few bucks. Start giving it away. Mailing it. When I wrote Guerilla Marketing for beauty salons, I got a list of all the beauty salons near my home and mailed it out with a letter, and then literally got in the car and did follow-up. You can buy lists. When you know your hungry fish, you know who the beauty salons are, you can go ahead and buy a list, and you can mail to the list a letter or a postcard. You can also go visit people and go see people. But one of the ways I use direct marketing, I really use it in conjunction. I mail a book, I make a phone call, I go visit, I mail an article, I make a phone call, I go visit. So I use direct mail probably 4 to 8 times a year. And I'll tell you what, and I think people should hear this, I landed a few years ago my biggest corporate client by constantly mailing to them, and they never picked up the phone for a year, and at the end of the year they called me and said, this is ridiculous, just come on over and meet with us. And when we met, I signed a huge deal. So be persistent with direct mail.
I love that. And I know on Friday you were talking about how to also sell or write a book, because a lot of people think that writing a book is pretty daunting to a lot of people. You said make it easy and just turn a couple of pages together, right? And I know you also have a couple of other secrets around how to write a book pretty quickly and straightforward. Can you share more of those secrets with us?
Yes. Several of my books, including one that's a bestseller, I literally dictated. I just couldn't keyboard it. And so I would, whenever I thought of something, I would dictate it and dictate it. And then I decided each one of those would turn into a small chapter. And from all those little small chapters, I had somebody transcribe it. I had somebody in India transcribe it. It was only $4 a chapter, US, which is very, very cheap. And I had a book, and it was done for me in less than 20 days. But there is another way. Take your blog posts. I've seen people turn them into a book, okay? So I'm going to teach a concept that I teach my clients. It's 2 words that everybody should know: leverage and optimize. Leverage and optimize. So everything you do it at least 3 ways. So as I said, I wrote this book, right? Well, the book is now my blog post. The book turned into videos. The book turned into small articles. So leverage everything you do at least 3 ways. That's how you get a book written.
I'm working right now on 2 books in parallel, and that's possible because I use these techniques as well. So very, very powerful, Terri. Thanks for sharing them.
Oh, you're welcome.
I think that what I said in my introduction as well is that you are a guerrilla marketing expert, and you just said you wrote a book about guerrilla marketing for spas and for beauty salons. And I just wonder, you already gave us a couple of hints that are guerrilla marketing in a way, right? Why is guerrilla marketing so important, and how can business owners, especially entrepreneurs that are just starting or that want to get to the next level, how can they learn guerrilla marketing? And maybe can you share some more hints why it's so important?
Great, Monique. I think guerrilla marketing, for me personally as a business owner, was the best book I ever read. And I can't remember what year J. Conrad Levinson wrote the original guerrilla marketing book, which is since a bit outdated because the internet didn't exist, and he talked about yellow pages. When I read that book, I took all the no-cost strategies and I used them in my first business, my speech pathology clinic. And that's how I really built that business to $1 million. So that was like, I tell people that was my little Bible that I learned from. Now, as I learned more techniques and created my own formula, I was very fortunate to actually have J. Conrad Levinson ask me to co-author books with him. And for me, that was like, you know, it was like a God asking me. It's a big wow for me. So guerrilla marketing, let me give you some examples, because recently I've done a few cool things. Really wanted to get advertising in my local paper so my local beauty salons would see my book. But I don't want to pay for advertising, okay? And I tell startups, try to pay for nothing. So I went to the paper and I said, you know, I'd like you to do an article about me, and if the article gets me any phone calls, even one, then I'll do a small ad. So they made a big whoop out of this, okay? They interviewed me. They just sent somebody to my house last week to do these photographs. They sent me a copy of the article this morning. It was in my inbox to approve. I expected, you know, a little article. I'm not paying. Oh, no. It's a whole full page with my picture. My website is in there, my email address. So that's a no-cost strategy, okay? And I'll give people one more. I believe the biggest strategy that you can use is called fusion partners. Fusion partners. And a fusion partner is somebody who has a like-minded business, has the same hungry fish that you have, but gives them something different. Okay, so I do coaching and consulting, but I really don't get into a lot of like e-myth system stuff. But I know somebody who does. So she brings her list to me, I bring my list to her, and we share offerings. It's a brilliant way to get started. And one final thing, Even though my books, Monique, are guerrilla marketing for spas or salons, when you read the book, no matter what kind of a business you own or will own, just put the name of your business in there because that book works for everybody and it's updated for today, FYI.
I love it. And I love the example as well. Very powerful suggestion for our viewers to also find fusion partners on their side. And Terri, I'd like to dive into another topic. You also wrote a book called Selling Without Selling, right? Or Sell Without Selling. What is the difference between selling and your approach?
But remember, I sold all those Girl Scout cookies, right? Because that was before I heard people talking about sales. I didn't know that was like selling anything. So the first thing that I did is I did some inner work on myself. And I thought to myself, why was I able to provide Girl Scout cookies so easily? And I realized that was because I was making an offering. I personally think Girl Scout cookies are so delicious. And I was just sharing them. It's just like you share with a friend and you say, oh, I went to a great restaurant or I saw a great movie. You should see it. So I thought to myself, look, if they say no, I don't really care. If they don't want it, they have their own reasons. I will never overcome an objection. And I'll be honest, I went and learned under all the big sales experts, mostly men, and I realized it didn't resonate for me. I tried to sell that way in my art business, and my husband will attest to this. The first time I did it, I created a lot of sales. Most of those sales canceled the next day. Most of those people never wanted to see me again. And I came home from the art show and I threw up. Okay? So I took all the books, all the binders, I threw them away. And I created my own selling process, which is basically build a relationship, hear what people need, connect because you like people, not because you want people to like you. And if there's some common denominator of what you hear they need, and if you have it, simply offer it, just like Girl Scout cookies. Hey, I happen to have Girl Scout cookies. Would you like some? Yes, I would. Great. No, thank you. Okay. That's it. And the book is short, simple. It's a real easy read. But when people read it, I just had an owner of a company say to me, yeah, when I first got your book, I thought, oh, this is going to be nothing. It's such a little book. He said, it was really powerful. So that's what I try to teach people, really, is this mindset.
I just would like to go a little bit deeper on that one, Terri, because I know there is a lot of people that have quite a challenge with selling, and it's all in their mind, as you're saying. What's really holding people back to ask others or sometimes even to connect with others? What would you say?
There's a few things. I think the first thing that I see is that people are afraid to put themselves out there. Not only, let's get into rejection in a minute, but it's not only that. You have got to fully believe in your products and services. Whatever you decide your business is and whatever business you're involved in, you have to have ridiculous passion. I can't stop talking about coaching. I can't stop talking about the impact it makes on businesses. I think it's the greatest thing. So I have passion for it. The second thing is, I really don't have fear of rejection. And that's just because I realize it's not for everyone, okay? And if it's not right for somebody, that's not about me. That is not about me. It means it's not right for them. So I'll share this, Monique. Last summer, about this time, I was shopping for a new car. And it was between an Audi, which I've had before and I love, or a Volkswagen. And I was going between the two, and the Audi dealer kept saying, you know, this is the last one. If you don't get this one, you'll have to wait till next year. No more are coming in. And I was like, I just don't know what to do. And I was so confused because there was a lot of pressure that I said, well, you have Volkswagens also. I want to look at a Volkswagen convertible. And he went, a Volkswagen? And I said, well, you sell them. They must be a good car if you're selling them, right? Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I got in this Volkswagen and took it for a ride and thought, holy crow, I am in love with this convertible. It's amazing. And I came back and said, well, how much is this? And it was half the price, okay, of the Audi. And it was the color I wanted. So I wanted that car. Well, he kept pushing, oh, the Audi has better this and better that. I said, I thought you told me the Volkswagen has the Audi engine. Yes, well, it does. So as this went on, I left the dealership completely. I get in my car and I went to the next Volkswagen dealer I could buy, and I walked in and I bought the car. Okay? So you don't need to push anything on people. Either people want it or they don't. You can't sell something to someone. So forget trying. And if they say no, who cares? If I said no to the Audi because I like the Volkswagen better, the salesperson shouldn't take that personally.
I love that example, Terri. And it's so true. There's this beautiful saying where it says, people hate to be sold to, but they love buying,
True.
right?
I think that's so. I know it's true for me. It's very true.
It's very true for everyone. Thanks for sharing that story.
Welcome.
Well, Terri, I could keep talking to you for a long time, but let's just maybe summarize our conversation by, I know you work with so many businesses from so many industries. Would you mind summarizing our conversation, just maybe saying what are the key hints, advice, success principles you would like to share with people that are just thinking about starting their business or have started and really want to go further and become more successful, more profitable, and so on?
Okay.
What is your key advice?
All right, let's go fishing. So you need to find your hungry fish. It's really hard to offer a product or service when people aren't raising their hands already saying, I want it or need it. Find people who are already wanting or needing what you have. The second thing is then find out where they hang out, whether online or offline, magazines. One of my clients, we found out that her perfect, ideal hungry fish hang out at running events, so marathons. So now she hangs out there. Okay, put yourself where your hungry fish are, and then use the right bait. We didn't touch on this too much, so I want to say two things. Make them an irresistible offer. So I say to business owners, look, I will spend 45 minutes with you on the phone. I will help you in your business. No strings attached. At the end of the call, if you want to know more, great. If not, you can walk away, great. Okay? Give them an irresistible offer and tell them why, because people are skeptical, and I say, here's the reason. The way I get my clients is by doing these sessions, and sometimes people like it and want more, and sometimes they don't, but sometimes they do. Okay? And then the next thing is have the right bait. And I prefer no and low-cost guerrilla marketing bait, so I'll mention that in a minute. But the bait needs to be both online and offline. Please use some direct mail marketing. Please use the telephone. Absolutely, LinkedIn, blogging. And then, finally, to summarize, there are over 200 no and low-cost guerrilla marketing activities that I put together, and I'd be happy to share those.
That would be great. It sounds like you're offering our viewers a free gift, Terri. Where can they find it?
See, I walk my talk. Just send me an email. Just send me an email and just say, hey, I heard you on the business launch portal, and I would like the 200, and I will send them right over to you by email. I know they will help.
Oh, incredible. Thanks for being generous once more, Terri. And it was just really wonderful to have you on the call today, and I'm going to give you the last word of wisdom in a second, but just to our audience, I'd like to thank you to be on with us today. I hope you get a lot of invaluable hints and tips and are clear on the next step that you should take to move forward. And I look forward to have you back with us next week when we'll have another great, very successful entrepreneur on. But back to Terri to give us the last words of wisdom from her side.
So first thing, go ahead and shoot me an email, terri@terrilevine.com, so you can get your Guerilla Marketing 200. But the second thing is, remember this quote. Famous leadership and management expert Peter Drucker said, marketing and innovation are cost. Marketing and innovation are costs that you need to have in your business. So innovation comes from here. The cost is your energy. And marketing comes from what I've taught you. And use no and low cost because that's what works today.
Great. Thanks for being on with us, Terri, and hope to have you back sometime.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.